Alright, got our new camera. Fortunately, my old microphone doesn't seem to want to work for this. So though the video quality is going to be greatly improved, the audio quality will have to endure this built-in camera audio, and hopefully it is sufficiently of a sufficient quality to work for what to not make your ears bleed as you listen to this. So anyway, it's been a few days since I've done this. Been busy with various things of life. Had a pretty intense sort of experience of discomfort the other day. Basically I was feeling a little bit disconnected from where it was that I felt like I wanted to be in life, and where I was, and sort of like when we have this feeling of disconnection from how we want our life to look and how it actually is, often that can sort of take us out of our bodies, and sometimes it can create this sort of feeling of just not, a feeling of being disconnected from ourselves, because we are like literally projecting our self somewhere else, because it's like the current, something about the current way things are is like unpleasant, for whatever reason, or it doesn't like match the image that we would rather want in our life. So sometimes it's one thing to like intellectually understand, to sort of be present with where you are, to like to be quiet enough to enjoy life as it is. It's another thing to understand. It is one thing to understand that, and then it's sort of another thing to actually live that way, because it's very easy in the way the world is to get disconnected and disheartened, because it's like why is life so difficult? Why does it feel like I have no place in this world? And then it's like, it's tempting to, I think where a lot of the pain comes from is it's tempting to sort of blame ourselves for like, I'm not doing enough, I need to be doing better, I need to do more, I need to create more, I need to experience more, I need to put myself out there more, and I need to try more, and I need to do this long list of things that I'm not doing. So it's like, instead of like actually doing any one of those things, we're just sort of like are like in this state of like of anxiety, of like, I don't know what to do with my life. I just feel like I'm sort of going on these rails and they're taking me nowhere. Anyway, at some point I just sort of it's kind of like difficult to put into words what I did to sort of overcome this tremendous feeling of a burden, of like being stuck in between these intense feelings of dissatisfaction, and then this desire to go back into my body, to go back to happiness. And it's like I know that the means of doing this is sort of just by being with the feeling, and sometimes the feeling is so uncomfortable, because it's like our mind just wants to keep us reminding, nah, you don't have what you want, you can't be happy, you need to like go out there and chase what you want. You can't be happy right now in this moment, because nothing that you have right now is any evidence of you moving in the right direction. And it's sometimes like it's hard to tell, like when we're anxious, if we're actually making progress or not, and we sort of like put out of focus all the ways in which we're like actually moving closer to our goals. Because like, our goals are one thing, but then living right now is another thing. So it's more important that we live right now than it is that we are like, that our goals are, being met in the sort of intellectual realm that we, often sort of separate ourselves from our body. So, at some point along time, I just sort of just started paying attention to the pain that I was feeling inside of my chest, inside of my body, just feeling so disconnected from, what it was, whatever it was. It's like, just felt like so swept up in this experience of suffering, and this idea of just being completely, going through life without any real focus. And then, eventually I just sort of paid attention to, I think what happened was I've finally sort of looked at what is it that my goals are, like what is it that I actually want. And then I sort of like tried to imagine them, and then I realized like the images that I had sort of created as the goals that I wanted, something about them didn't really feel right. And then that to me revealed something softer underneath, something that I hadn't been paying attention to. And when I started just paying attention to, just like I wasn't even aware of it at first, but my tears started streaming from my eyes, and I realized that I had been like sitting on pain and sort of blocking self-love. Essentially, I'd sort of forgotten to pay attention to myself and accept myself as I am, because it was like I was like an abusive parent, like bearing down on myself to like move forward in a direction that like the inner child was not really being paid attention to. And so I just sort of like realized, okay, I'm putting too much pressure on myself. That's essentially why I'm so uncomfortable. And what I really need to do is sort of go back to the experience of what I'm feeling right now, and just sort of be with it, and be okay with whatever it is that the future holds for me. It doesn't mean that if I don't end up exactly where I want to end up, that I failed, because right now is where true fulfillment always is something that we can sort of give to ourselves. There's always this opportunity to give ourselves to fulfillment, and we can sort of fulfill our desires in each moment by not making a long list of things that we need to do in order to achieve something, but by being sort of present with what it is that we have right now. And often what is that we have right now is a lot of accumulated emotional information in our nervous system that is sort of backed up and hasn't been paid attention to. And so like what we do is we try to get away from these feelings by going after these externalized goals. And we realize, if we're intelligent enough to stop for a moment, is, we're not actually going for these things because we want these other things. We're going for these things because we're trying to get away from something. So that, doesn't get us closer to what we want, is by, using sort of this usurping our own feelings in order to try to get away from what has been sort of stored up in our bodies, will not get us closer to what we want. I think because ultimately we can't really order ourselves to want, anything in particularly. Whatever it is that we naturally want, what we naturally feel is, what we want. So we can't say, oh, I want this according to this, image sometimes, because if the image doesn't align with what we feel, then it's never going to be manifest quite in the way that is going to feel satisfying. And then if we even if we do manage to bring the image into reality, we still feel unsatisfied because it's still, our emotions are still there that we've been trying to run away from, all these years. So I sort of went back to these uncomfortable feelings of, who it is inside myself that needs to be loved. And essentially, in doing so, what I'm doing is I'm loving. It's not like I'm loving myself so much as I'm loving what the universe has given me, because this idea of self and who we are, that is all something that is artificial and sort of implanted into us, and the actuality of who we really are is more, it's more universal. We are like these receptors of information, and then what we can do with that information is process it internally. And in doing so, when we process it, the universe sort of naturally rewards us, because what we're doing by processing our natural desires, by confronting the static information within the universe, we're bringing it into greater order within ourselves. And as we do bring it into greater order within ourselves, the universe becomes into greater order. And so, the universe, what we're essentially doing is we're fulfilling not our own desires, but the desires of the universe. And the universe sort of rewards us by this feeling of fulfillment. And then this feeling of fulfillment creates this greater state of happiness. And then, we become more able to manifest, and our environment naturally feels more in alignment with, what we want. And all of a sudden we start, things just start lining up in the way that we may not have expected, because now we're actually comfortable enough with ourselves to recognize where fulfillment is. And it's like, it's sort of like the reticular activating system is like part of our brain that sort of scans the environment to notice, certain things. It's sort of like the Google in our mind. And so when we put our attention on this, on what is internal, and then we find this internal fulfillment, that makes us more able to find the fulfillment, see the fulfillment manifest in the world more. To put it in a somewhat scientific way, is the reticular activating system is more able to see what it is that we want, because we're happier with ourselves, less divided. And so, the manifestation process is, I think, often, it's more of a recognition of what resonates inside, and the state we feel inside. And when we become more comfortable with that, then we're able to see it more out in the world, and we're able to more steer our ship into the direction, and it becomes more clear, oh, I can go this way, I can go that way. Before, when we are trying to do things, manage things in this harsh, egoistic way of like, no, I only want this, everything else can, get lost. When we do that, we close the doors to what we really want, because what we really want is not really in the sort of more verbal part of our brain. It's in the feeling part. And if it doesn't feel good, well, how do you ever expect that it's going to feel good? If you're just going for what is, your intellect is able to recognize. So if you try to chart success based on the intellect, you'll only ever, be able to manifest partially what it is out of life that you want, because you're not addressing life in the realm of feeling, because within the realm of feeling, that is where true fulfillment, exists. So this is, basically, I went through, and it's a continuous process. Throughout life, we are challenged to process the information that exists in our environment, and the more we begin to recognize it and stop trying to label it as good or bad, and we just learn to be with it and sort of accept ourselves and accept what the universe is sort of putting into our basket, when we accept the call to which, to what we're called upon, to our true purpose, that is where fulfillment takes place. And so that is, I think, where I was struggling with, a couple of days ago, is just feeling sort of, like out of alignment with my actual self, and just sort of feeling all of a sudden, and then when that happens, we can often feel like we're sort of in this void of stagnancy, because it's like, oh, I'm not moving towards what I want, but, it's like, well, what about it? What about what you want is not really in alignment with who you are? And so you sort of have to be really honest with yourself. And it sort of helps, I think, to sort of pray to God, because God is sort of, whether you believe in God or not, you could also call it the unconscious. You could ask your unconscious, well, what is it that my unconscious wants? You could, put it in that way, or you could say, God, what is it that you want? And by sort of letting go of this, intellectualized mechanism of control, and allowing, a part of yourself that is greater than, sort of what you understand, sort of rationally and logically, then you're able to realize that the field, you're far more free in this field of experience, and you realize, oh, there's so much more experience out there for me to have, and I'm not letting myself have it, and I'm putting myself into this tight container of what is acceptable, and it doesn't feel good. And this feeling of it not feeling good is basically, the unconscious or God telling you you're not, being honest with what, and you're not really, seeing what it is that I have to show you. So, this can be an extremely challenging thing, because, we really do dig our claws deeply into the images that we feel are, sort of like our destiny is drawing, that we want our destiny to be a certain way. But sometimes we just have to let go of those images, and if they do manifest, we have to allow them to sort of manifest in the way, God or, our unconscious is able to structure for us in a more, there's a spider, in a more sort of harmonious way with what we truly are. So, we can't really, lie our way into heaven, essentially. If we were going to get into heaven, we have to let go of all falsehoods, and we need to embrace the truth as it is, and often the truth as it is has been obscured through the realm of language, because language defines things as good and bad, but that is not really the language that is meant for you and me. That is something that has been created for slaves, essentially. And to really find fulfillment, we need to accept what is, not what we evaluate by whatever external authority has been given. So anyway, this has been very thrilling to express, and I hope that the audio is decent quality enough. That way it doesn't make people's ears bleed. But yeah, you guys have a good one. Much love to all of you out there. All the lambs out there. I love you, appreciate you. Keep on moving forward in life. Keep aligning with yourselves. Anyhow, I'll see you guys again soon. Have a good one.